All right, I think we have a good amount of people here, so I think we'll get started. Welcome everyone to the Visitation Valley Annual Community Meeting. Before we begin, our Cantonese interpreter will make a quick announcement for those requiring interpretation services.
歡迎咧，係大家參加今日呢個 Visitation Valley Impact Fee 同埋呢個 Baylands North Development 嘅最新資訊嘅會議。今日嘅會議咧，我哋係會提供廣東話嘅即時傳譯服務嘅。如果咧你哋係需要聽呢個嘅翻譯嘅話咧，你哋係可以係打呢個電話啦，係415-906-4659，然後咧係輸入呢一個會議嘅代碼718-222-615，然後井字嘅。你哋咧亦都係可以係點擊呢一個嘅連結啦，就係咧聽呢一個嘅翻譯嘅。呢個連結咧就係https TINYURL 1點，然後 com 然後VVNOV 9 CANTONESE。咁你亦都可以係點擊呢一個嘅連結咧，就係聽我哋嘅翻譯嘅。多謝。
All right, thanks. Next slide, please. Thank you all for being here this evening. My name is Lily Langlois, and I'm a principal planner with the San Francisco Planning Department. We were last before you for an update in November of last year and are happy to be here this evening. The goals for today's meeting are to provide an update on impact fee projections, an update on a number of neighborhood projects, an update on the Baylands North Development Project, and share opportunities to give feedback, and we'll try our best to answer some of your questions. This evening, we will begin with an update on impact fee projections. Brian Stokel from Rec Park and Tracy Lynn from SFMTA will provide updates on a few projects in the neighborhood, which you may be familiar with and or have been engaged on. After that, Greg Vilken will give an update on the Baylands North Development Project, and we will conclude with Q&A. Before we begin, we want to go over a few items to help guide our conversation today. The first is please stay on mute during the presentation. We will be recording this presentation and we will post it to the project website after the meeting, and we will also send an email update with the recording as well as a summary. Cantonese interpretation is available, and this meeting is estimated to be about an hour, and we will end by 7 o'clock. Next slide, please. Just a quick reminder about impact fees. Go ahead, next slide. So impact fees were created to capture the value created by development. With new development comes new fees that can be used to pay for capital improvements, including transit, streets, sidewalks, open space, and childcare. And the amount and availability of funds depends on the timing of development that's taking place. Next slide, please. Impact fees can be collected, back one. Impact fees can be collected on new development of a certain size for projects. Next slide. Thanks. Impact fees can be collected on development of a certain size for projects that fall within the blue area. Most of the development that will occur in this area is from two major projects, the Schleglock site or Baylands North Development, and also Executive Park. Money collected from these fees can be spent on infrastructure improvements within the impact fee boundary, which is shown by the shaded blue line. The planning department develops impact fee projections to determine how much money we might expect in the next 5 to 10 years. And these projections help us plan for and fund future projects, working closely with our partner agencies, including Rec Park, SFMTA, Public Works. We estimate that there would be about $9.5 million available by 2026 and about $28 million by 2031. But again, these are estimates, and this amount depends on the development taking place. Next slide. So as part of the Visitation Valley Schleglock community planning effort, the planning department solicited community input to understand the priority projects that would be funded with impact fees. There were a series of community meetings that took place in 2014 through 2017 to understand the projects as well as the priorities. Next slide. Based on this feedback, a few projects were selected to move forward with implementation. And while there has been not a significant amount of impact fee collected, the city has been successful in finding other revenue sources to fund a number of projects. And so there's been a handful of projects in the neighborhood that's been able to move forward with implementation. So I'll transition now to just a few project updates. The first is the Blanken Underpass Community Mural. Many of you played a major role in the artist selection and community design process for the Underpass Community Mural that took place in 2019. The design was approved by the Arts Commission in August of 2020, and the design and application package was submitted to Caltrans in October of 2020. Some additional work needs to be done to identify a funding source for long-term maintenance for the mural before the application can move forward. I'll now hand it off to Brian with Rec Park to talk about a number of projects that Rec Park is leading.
Hi, thanks. Nice to see everybody. There's a few projects here and we've made progress on some of them or are about to break ground. So this is the Visitation Avenue connector sidewalk installation, and as has been the plan for a while now, is in orange is to add a sidewalk to connect from Visitation Avenue at Hahn in the neighborhood up to the middle school, and then also extend the sidewalk on the Hertz playground side up to around the basketball court and possibly to a crosswalk at the community garden if after analysis with MTA, though it's near Leland. And the update on that is that we're about to commence outreach. I'm already in touch with MTA and Public Works to get preliminary assessments. And I will be reaching out to a lot of you when this gets rolling, whether it's sometime the end of this year or early next year. Next slide. This is the trail project that's parallel to the road. There's actually a bit, probably the people here know it, but there's actually several acres of land east of Visitation Avenue, and this trail goes through that area. And so that's connecting also from Hahn to the middle school. That will be beginning in the spring. However, in a week, I just got the update, the native plant garden, which was actually spearheaded by locals in the neighborhood, will be breaking ground in that area marked with B. And there may be, just as a detailed update, there may be a few parking spots that'll be eliminated temporarily while this is constructed, because they need some access to the site, and they don't want any construction disrupting cars that are parked there. But I'm really excited that this is about to break ground, the native plant garden. And I am also, the sidewalk work is going hand in hand, not necessarily on schedule, but on design with the trail project to the school, because they'll be likely meeting each other at that midpoint where the community garden is and near at the school. So we're making sure that everything's coordinated, and that'll begin in the spring for the trail. Next. This is one of the projects that's done. The new crosswalk, as you can see in the picture on the right, was installed with the pedestrian refuge island, as well as the new crosswalk and the flashing beacons. And you can kind of see that there are two black solar powered street lights so that it's illuminated when in these darker, when, you know, in the winter when it's school gets out, or if you stay late at school, there will be lighting there. So that's one of the, and this was one of the definitely listed on the projects that Lily mentioned, and now it's done. Next. The Hertz playground renovation, which has been a long time coming, is already, the design's completed. We're working on the documents, and we estimate construction to begin in this coming summer. And Alexis Ward is the project manager on that, and you have the information on there. And also on those previous ones, if you need the contact information, we can go back, or you can contact me in the messages. Next. And then the big Hertz Recreation Center project, which is in combination with the Sunnydale Hub Community Center. That's going to be starting also this summer. And that will take about a little bit more time to build. And Alexis is also the project. So that's bringing us a new gymnasium and some community rooms, as well as some outdoor elements in Hertz Playground. And all of this, we at Rec and Park and also at the Hub, the Sunnydale folks, we're all communicating to make sure that all these designs work together and we are coordinated for the impact to the neighborhood while the construction's on, so that we're not stepping on each other's toes. And I think that's it for me. And I'm totally available for questions at the end.
Tracy, are you here?
Hi, yep.
Hey.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Tracy Lynn. I'm with the SFMTA, the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency. We oversee transportation in the city. So that includes taxis, pedestrian infrastructure, bikes, and most of all Muni, but not limited to that. So I'm here to talk about our project, which is called the Visitation Valley and Portala Community-Based Transportation Plan, or CBTP for short. So basically a CBTP is a plan or a report that is built directly from what the community tells us about their transportation needs. We have no specific project proposals. Everything we come up with will be drawn directly from what people tell us, hence the community-based portion of our title. So you can see our project area here. It also includes all of the Muni lines that are in the project area. So we include Visitation Valley, Little Hollywood, as well as portions of Portala. Next slide, please. I have some photo examples of some of the infrastructure elements that we can incorporate into our plan. So it's largely infrastructure improvements. So that just really means things that we can build on the ground. So the picture here shows, we call them zebra stripes informally. They're just more visible crosswalks rather than your typical two horizontal line crosswalks. Something else is raised crosswalks. So that kind of acts as speed humps to slow vehicles down if there's a speeding problem. And it also improves visibility of pedestrians crossing the street. We also have some Muni service planning and bus stop improvements. So that includes shelters and lighting. So we just started our outreach, and it's a one-year process split up into 3 distinct phases. So we're currently in phase 1. We're asking people what their transportation priorities and challenges are. And that's so that we have a starting point from which to base our eventual improvements. In phase 2, we will reaffirm what we heard in phase 1, bring back the top problem locations that people identified, and then present a range of tools specific to each location that could help with the challenge. And people would then indicate which tools they prefer. And by tools, I mean some of these treatments that you're seeing here. In phase 3, we would then reaffirm what we heard in phase 2, constantly just checking that we heard people correctly and finalize what tools will be used to address each specific problem location, because we recognize that each location is going to have its own unique set of challenges. And so certain tools that might apply for one intersection may not be the best solution for another intersection. So this will all culminate in a final plan that will go to our board for adoption in early 2023. So if you go to the next slide, we have a QR code and a link to our webpage. And this is where our survey is located. It'll be the first link at the top of the webpage. Currently, we just have English, but we're working on finalizing Chinese, Filipino, and Spanish version. So we'll have that up as soon as possible. You can also email and call this number to provide feedback if you'd like. We also updated a list of outreach events that we're doing in the coming months. It's also on our webpage. So we're doing a series of pop-ups at different neighborhood locations, and we're going to be constantly updating that list. So check back frequently and you'll see more events that you can come out to. We're also working on sending out a mass email with all of these updates to everyone. So hopefully we'll get that out soon. And I think that's the last slide I have. So thanks for letting me take a little bit of time at today's meeting.
Thanks, Tracy. Next slide, Sheila. And Greg, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I am with Balin's Development, and I'm happy to talk to you tonight about our plans and progress for Balin's North, which was formerly known as the Schleg Lock site. And so we are going to go through that now. Next slide, please. Okay, so where we are is, this is the far north. Who's driving this? Sheila? If you move your cursor to the top part of the screen on the left side so people can, on the map itself, and we can point out where the Schleg Lock is. If you go further north to the point, north is the other way. There we go. Go down. Okay, right there. So that is the historic building right on the edge, just to orient people. That's Bayshore Boulevard that it goes down, and that's Blanken at the top. We own all of the property from there all the way down to the lagoon, which is 2 miles away. So again, in looking at this overall project and scale, is only possible at seeing this very, very small, but it represents 2 miles. And what we're talking to you about today is this very top piece, which is 20 acres of the 700, which is what is known as the Schleg Lock piece. And that goes down to Sunnydale Avenue, and Sunnydale Avenue is the end of Schleg Lock, and it actually is the middle of Balin's. Okay, so this is all one big project for us. And one of the things that has taken us more time is getting the San Mateo and Brisbane portions of the project approved, so that we know that all of the infrastructure flows together and it all works. And it has taken us a little longer to get that done than was originally anticipated. So where we are with the Brisbane portion of Balin's is the general plan amendment has been approved. We are processing the entitlements for the specific plan and working on all of the sustainability elements. Next slide, please. So this was originally what we now call Balin's North, was originally Schleg Lock factory site. As you know, it was a historic building and site from 1929. It was originally an agreement that was reached between the redevelopment agency and the company in 2011. But then the agency went away and the money that the agency was putting in went away. And so there was a new agreement reached, and the development agreement was executed in 2014. And it had called for 15% affordable housing, and it called for us to put in the public infrastructure ourselves, and it called for us to build the public parks. And so that was a set of fully negotiated agreements that was executed in 2014. And since that time, we've been trying to implement and move forward. Okay, next slide. So here's our massing document that we've submitted to the city. And when you look at it, you can see the Schlegel Lock building in the foreground. And we have now completely renovated that building. And that is where the 4,000 square foot community room and community space, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, will be made available, is in that building. The other buildings that you see there are our first phase, which are 3 buildings for 574 units. So let's go ahead to the next one. So what you can expect during this next year is the completion of the historic office building, which we are 95% complete and have been for several months. The challenge right now is with getting PG&E to give us full power. And we were on track to do that. And we were going to move in December. And then with this atmospheric river that happened 2 weeks ago, PG&E had a bunch of outages all over. And so they had to stop all new construction and put all their crews dedicated on repairs until those repairs are finished. And they've told us that'll be between 2 and 6 weeks. So that now puts us to occupancy in January or February, because nothing can go forward until we have power, and then we'll finish our elevator and then we can open the building. So we are planning to move into the building ourselves and make it the information and design center for the Valence, and it will be our offices as well. And then we will start the first phase of construction of the new streets and infrastructure. And the first 3 buildings we're anticipating in 2023. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. So the historic office building, if anyone has not been out there lately and looked at it, it is a substantial improvement from what it was. This was what it was before, and now, next slide, please. This is what it is now. And it's been restored inside and out. It's a brand new roof. All of the windows had been either repaired or replaced with like-kind historic windows. It is historically accurate for its original period, and we were hoping to have the meeting in the space, and we will for next year. We'll be in the space for these meetings in real time, and as soon as we open, we're happy to host tours and have people come in and see the space. Next slide. This is the back. If you remember what the back looked like before, it was a mess. Okay, and it's taken us, and I don't mind sharing the number, about $10.8 million to complete the restoration of the whole building. Next slide. This kind of is our current state. So our commitment to this building is the community space. 25% of the historic office building, which is about 4,000 square feet, will be dedicated to community use. We've designated the first floor for the community space. It has its own private entrance, and it can be used during non-business hours, and it has direct access to the outside and the plaza. We expect to continue the community outreach because this is your space. And one of the things is the community will need to determine what it wants to use the space for. We have finished the build out of the space, including bathrooms in the kitchen. And then we will turn it over to the community, and the community will go through a process to determine what is going to be made of that space. Go ahead to the next slide, please. Okay, so some of you may remember that a year ago, we sent out a survey. We had 68 responses back, and we said, a couple of questions. One is, what activities and programming would you like to see in the future community space? And the top 3 choices were general event space, a community meeting space, art and cultural space. And you can see those were all pretty equal across the board. What we asked is, in the neighborhood, what types of activities were most needed? And the top 2 choices were activities for seniors and activities for children or youth. So again, this is going to be a community-led process, and the community can decide what it would like to do with the space. Next slide, please. So here is a plan of what the space is. It's primarily a big open space. There are a men's bathroom and a women's bathroom, or two non-gender specific bathrooms in there, along with a kitchen, which is marked as a break room with it's a fully built out kitchen, an elevator that services the building even after hours. And then the rest is pretty much an open space to be determined how the community would like it to be broken up and used. And so again, it's ready to go. It will be occupiable the day that we get our certificate of occupancy. Next slide, please. Here's some pictures of anyone who was ever in the building before knows what a difference this is. All the air conditioning has been put in, all the plumbing is there. That hole you see is for the elevator. For example, there's the kitchen, the plaza access, and one of the reasons that we picked the first floor is so that we can create outside accessible space right off the entrance to the space. Okay. The landscaping, you'll see the landscaping go in the front of the building, all native species, and it will go along the sidewalk in the front. There'll be a low fence and to help protect the space, and then the landscaping will be put in as noted. That work should start happening in probably right in the first of the year. Okay, next slide. So here are a couple of ideas that we have, and again, these are something that is the community can decide, but we're happy to make additional investment in the neighborhood. And one of the things that we started thinking about is we have the plaza area, which is in front of the building, which is a public area, and that has the palm trees, but none of the other things that we've shown. And we started looking at it and saying, what would be some fun things to do to help dress up that space and to have it almost as an art project. And so this is just, again, to start some of the community discussion. We put some ideas down, but again, we're happy to invest money into doing this space, but we'd like it to be a community-led space of how the community would like to activate that space now. Next slide. Okay, this is our team that you can reach out to. There are some new faces there and names. Stephanie Shakovsky is our VP of Government Relations, and Eric Aronson is our Director of Sustainability. And then myself, I'm the CEO, and you can reach out to any one of us. Our emails are there. And then our Public Relations and Affairs team is Yvette Davis and Luis Quadra. So we're all on there, and any questions we're happy to take. Thank you. Luis, do you want me to go through these, or do you want to? Okay, I'll read these out for everyone. Okay. If you raise your virtual hand, if you look at the bottom of your screen, there is a thing that you can tap, and it'll put a hand up as if you were raising your hand. And then Luis can see that and then call on you, or you can type your questions into the chat bar, and then they'll come up and we'll be able to address.
Yeah, so we'll just open it up for questions. We have the project sponsor team as well as staff from a variety of city departments. And again, following this meeting, we'll post a summary on the website and send an email with the link to everyone. So thank you all for attending, and happy to answer any questions.
Linda has a question. She has her hand raised.
Are you calling on me?
Yeah, hi, good evening,
Hi.
Linda.
Hi. So I have two questions. One is when you talk about the community space, I would imagine that over time, different groups will want to use it. It sounds like you're hoping that some group will take over the management of it and the scheduling of it. Is that how you see it? Or is that something we would go through your organization to make use of that space?
That's a great question. I don't know that that's been determined yet. I think that's, again, the city will lead that process. There needs to be someone who's responsible for the space and managing of the space. We will be there in the building during the day. After hours, we would need someone to be responsible to open it, close it, etc. And all of that, again, will be the city and community-led process, whether that's Rec and Parks or how you want to, the community wants to do it and the city wants to figure it out.
All right, so that's a TBD. And then the other question I have is on the plaza. You know, we've had recurring, and I don't know what's there right now, I haven't been by, but recurring, the beginnings of homeless tents kind of encampments. Is that something that you would be managing once you move into that building? Or how are you going to prevent that from happening?
That is a great question. We can't legally prevent it, but our intention is to have security that is sweeping the area in the evenings. And while it is not our place to be able to remove homeless people from public spaces, we are going to try and get outreach and help work with the city to get homeless people into permanent solutions or solutions better than just sleeping there.
Okay, and is that one of the reasons for the planters? Is that to kind of help prevent that from happening?
No,
Okay.
no. I think the planters are simply good looking, and
Okay.
it because right now, if you look at them, the trees come straight down and there's paving right up to around them. And we started looking at that and saying we would like to have something planting. And as we started to look at it, we started to look at this planter idea
Okay.
and making them very oversized. Those are 5-foot tall planters, which then go out at an angle and it creates a planting bed on the top.
Got it.
Okay. But
Okay,
again,
thanks.
those are just some initial ideas.
Luis, did you get your sound back?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Yep.
there you go.
My apologies. I think we have some comments in the chat, and bear with me. So from Curtis, thank you for all the work that has been done, but I'm curious, you can't clean up the area while you wait for the next steps, and how are you addressing the lagoon after large storms?
I don't know with the lagoon. The lagoon is actually tidal lagoon, and it goes in and out with the bay. So I don't think the storm has any huge impact to the lagoon. I may be mistaken, but it just kind of goes in and out with the tide. The second question is, how are we going to clean up the area? One of the reasons we're moving into the building is because having activity and having access is going to make it less likely that it was the drug den and homeless den that it became. It was a blight on the community because there was no one there. And so we're moving there, and we will be there during all business hours, and then we will have security there in the evenings. And so that, and as we start construction in the space and have the first buildings going up, we'll have security there as well. But the only way to really clean it up is to have presence.
Great, thank you, Greg. We have a question from Russell for Brian with Recs and Parks. Russell was asking what's the park design process going to start up again for the 2 parks on the site?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Russell. I think this is a symbiotic relationship between us and the developer, and I think once they've gotten their office space, they're moved in. I think that's job number 1 I can imagine for them. We can revisit that and see when the best timing is to revisit the park design. I know we'd made decent progress, but obviously COVID put a stick in that wheel. But I think we can probably have an update as soon as they get their computers started at the the new office, but I don't have, there's no schedule as of this very moment, unless the folks over on the other side have any updates.
We don't. You know, what happened is we lost a year due to COVID because we weren't sure what changes were happening. There was no financing available. So we're kind of a year behind in everything. And so if you look at what we're doing now is we have re-engaged on the overall design for the project for Viz Valley, which is what we call Valence North specifically, and the parks come right along with that. So we will, I would assume during 2022, have a series of meetings with updates of what was approved, because a final park design was approved in 2014. I think it should be updated. I think the community would like it updated. And so I think we'll go back through that process.
Great. Thank you, Greg. A comment from Natalie, great progress. Thanks for sharing. We appreciate the updates and look forward to more. Greg, a question from Gina Tobar. I think everything that is planned for outside should consider the wind. It's like a wind tunnel in that corridor.
Yes, we agree. We understand that. And we spend a lot of time thinking about that, of what happens when the buildings go up that acts like a big wind sail and a foil. And I'm not if you're aware of it, but one of the things that is part of the planning code in San Francisco is you have to do wind analysis at the sidewalk level of every building that you design to see what impacts you have on the wind. But we're very aware of that. And so that's part of the design that will be coming.
Great. And Greg, a question for Marlene Tran. What safety features are installed now because this historic building suffered from vandalism for years?
100%. So the features that will be installed, right now there's a fence around it, and we have security guards. Once we're there, we will be there during the day. We will have security every night that we're not there. And we will be installing a fence and a roll down door to help protect the building. So we're walking that line between, it's not going to be a fortress, it's not cut off from the community, but at the same time, we recognize that there are some urban challenges that come, graffiti and homelessness, to name the top two that we have to keep the building protected.
Great. And Lily, Marlene Tran is requesting that we email the presentation to neighbors to better inform other residents.
Sure, we'll send an email following this and welcome everyone's help in making sure that it's further distributed to your neighbors.
Great. And same request from Gina Tobar.
Sure.
Marlene, Greg, Marlene would like to know, can you put multilingual banners on the fence to enable residents to contact you about this long-awaited development?
Absolutely.
So that's a yes. And then from Russell Marine, best case scenario, when will the first units come online, Greg?
Best case, 2025.
Okay.
It's been a long wait.
So
There is no one, let me just address this one thing for a second. When I say those words and they come out of my mouth, they burn coming out of my mouth. But there's no one that wants more than us to have this thing started and have these buildings going forward. It feels like a Sisyphean exercise where we keep rolling this rock up, and then it comes back over the top of us and we're pummeled and we have to start again and roll the rock back up. But we are committed to this project, and we spend every day, all day, just problem solving so we can move forward. And so I appreciate the delays and how frustrating that is. It is definitely frustrating for us as well. And we appreciate that it is not what the community would want to see happen.
Okay. So Jack, you have a question?
Yeah, just a question and a comment as well. So Jack C here, I'm a resident of Little Hollywood. So I had the chance to tour the space along with a few of the community members last week. So must say very impressed, and it's a beautiful building. I think it takes me back to a few years ago when we met with kind of Jonathan Chapman, your predecessor there, Greg, that
Yep.
I just impressed upon him about making a great entry statement to the neighborhood while the historic building was dilapidated at the time. So we're just really impressed to see that progress and to really have a wonderful entry statement to Viz Valley and Little Hollywood. So I just want to commend your efforts on that. And I echo what Marlene had mentioned in the chat about having banners, and I think kind of creating a little bit more of a there for the development and just kind of around that wind fencing on Bayshore. So I think those do need some attention. I think that'd be great for that to be an entry statement as well to the to the area. My question is around the intersection of Bayshore and Arleta. I'm not super familiar with the kind of development plans. I probably should be, but is there any plans in the works to work that intersection and particularly the transit areas as part of this project? I know I spoke to Tracy Lynn about that over the weekend at one of our cleanups, but I'm just curious if there's any proposal to work in that area in terms of a public infrastructure improvement as part of your phase one.
We do not, okay, because that's outside of the project, but I think it is a very reasonable question. And I think that one of the things that the city is looking at is, they talk about the impact fees and what the impact fees can be used for. The impact fees can be used for transit improvements, like if you wanted to do something with Arleta Station or, something to make it a safer crossing. I think those are all things that are fair game, but I'll defer that to Lily and the planning folks.
Yeah, it seems like hopefully there'll be an opportunity where, a number of these projects have been identified. We've been able to find other revenue sources to advance them. And so potentially a new package of projects could be identified from the community that the impact fee money could be spent on. And I think that would be the best case scenario in being able to deliver additional projects in the neighborhood. I think also, as Tracy mentioned, through the community-based transportation plan, potentially other projects will be identified through that work. And then at that point, the city can explore different funding sources to implement them, impact fee money being one of the sources.
Hi, this is Tracy. Just wanted to add on a little bit. Yeah, that's correct. So the current CBTP process will lay out the plan which we need before we can do construction. So the next essential big phase of this is to build out the elements that are identified in the plan. That will require additional funding, which is something that we're working on right now, because the goal of the CBTP is to identify elements that can be built within 5 or so years upon plan adoption. So aiming to get, things in the ground sooner rather than having people wait decades.
Thank you, Tracy. Nelson, you have a question?
Yes, hi, how you doing? Hey, Greg, it's a question for you.
Nelson.
How you doing?
Good, yourself?
I'm doing well.
Good.
First question, is the two architects that are working on the first phase, I think it was Hanel and Cannery, are they still involved in the project? And
The architect who is the primary architect is Ankra Moisen, and yes, they are.
okay. Now, since everything's being pushed back, so I'm just curious, is the game plan is going to change the Brisbane side and the Viz Valley side? Are you guys trying to do it simultaneously now?
No, the plan, thank you for asking the question, Nelson. The plan is for us to lead with the Schleglock site. And we, just to put it in timing, we will not have our full entitlements on the Balin site until the end of 2023. And then we have a 2-year cleanup effort in 24 and 25. So no construction will start there till 26. And we want to start construction in 23 or 24 at the outside for Viz Valley, so we can get most or all of Schleglock, Balin's North built before we are ready to build in the Brisbane section.
Okay, so Viz Valley would probably be like the halo, or be like the
Correct. It's the first thing.
Okay.
It's the first part of the project. Those parks, those buildings, the plaza, all of it is the tip of the spear.
My next question is, I don't know if you have any update. What's the situation with the high-speed train? Because I know that was kind of would change some of the plans with this project. Is there any
Well,
word?
Yeah. So that's a good question again, Nelson. Thanks very much. The high-speed train is on their own path. They are unfunded, but they have an EIR out on the street. They in their current EIR, they take part of the property that we have as block 8 and block 9. But again, it is an unfunded portion of the high-speed train. So they are unable to make any financial commitments to actually buy land at this point. All they're doing is doing a design. So Nelson, I couldn't tell you what the odds are of it ever happening.
Okay, so legally, so I mean, you have to make your decision to move on with this project. So is there something
are.
that, there's a deadline for them? They have to make a decision. Is there some sort of
No,
legality?
they don't. That's not how it works. So I'm glad you asked that question. The way that works is they are a separate independent state agency that has eminent domain authority, and they make their own decisions. So they at any time could come along and say, I'm taking this property if they have a good public purpose, which for them is the light maintenance rail yard. And so they, when and if they're in a position to go do that, they can go forward and do that. And what they have to do to the landowner is they have to keep the land over revenue neutral, which means if we had buildings there, they'd have to tear down those buildings or the portion of those buildings and pay for that compensation, which makes it less likely for them to do that. So, we're going to start with buildings 1, 2, and 3, then we go 4, 5, 6, and then we do 7, and the last 2, 8, and 9 are the only 2 that are impacted. So by the time we would get to those, it would be 2027, 2028, and hopefully high-speed rail will have figured out what they're doing by then.
Okay. My next question is, okay, first I just want to make sure that we, the community, have opportunity to be involved with the architects on the project and just have some sort of input. And also, what's the word on the, I know it's a little ahead, but the supermarket space, any word on that, or I know it's way down the road.
That's down the road, but we know that we plan to have a supermarket. We plan to have a unique supermarket there, not kind of a run of the mill, but and that will be for a discussion for another day.
Okay. All right, thank you.
As far as the architectural designs, those were fully approved in 2014, and there is a design for development document that was approved through the city process that we have to adhere to. And Nelson, I don't know when the last time you looked at that. It is very, very prescriptive as to how it has to look and what has to happen to buildings. We're happy to show the designs as we develop them to the community and get input. But as far as changes, the city has a very stringent process of staying in compliance with the design for development agreement, which was approved through the Board of Supervisors in 2014.
Well, yeah, I understand that part, but I'm just talking about, like, there were some flow changes into when you guys hired this I guess when you guys changed the architect team, there's some changes. So I just comparing the previous team that was involved. And one more thing, Greg, is there any opportunity for other members of the community can visit that commercial space?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to take a look at it, and so that way us community members can have a discussion of what's probably the better approach.
I think what we'll do, yes, what we'll do is we're happy to set up a series of tours, and Luis would be the person to reach out to, and we will schedule those, and we'll take as many people who want to go through the building, and specifically in the community space, you can get a good feel for it. And then as soon as we get a occupancy permit, you guys can have meetings in that space.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Greg.
Yeah.
Nelson, I entered my email in the chat. Okay, we have several more questions in the chat before we wrap up here. Greg, Gina wants to know if it's too late to change the name, the Baylands.
It is too late, Gina.
Thank you for asking. Gia would like to know, will there be bicycle parking and trails along the Baylands development?
Yes.
Lily, Russell is asking for the city to provide an outline regarding the forthcoming community use discussion.
Sure. I mean, there's a little bit more conversation that has to happen among city departments to kind of figure out what the process will be. And once we figure that out, we're happy to provide an update to all of you.
Thank you. Russell is also asking if the easement issue has been resolved, Greg.
It has not. It has failed miserably. We went
Oh.
into, yeah, I mean, I'll just tell you, we have gone through binding mediation. We have, we filed a lawsuit. The lawsuit was dismissed and we've appealed. So we're back, we're making no progress. Let me put it that way.
Thank you. And then we have another comment from Marlene that I don't exactly understand, but the comment is, please check why Duck Loy Supermarket and others failed to avoid similar fate.
I'm not familiar with Duck Loy Supermarket.
Okay.
I think it's just to take a look at why other supermarkets in the area have not been successful for when you look ahead to how you want to have our grocery, Greg, which is very
Yeah.
much down the road, but point taken. And I think that's something obviously we are looking at is, you know, what is a good fit and what can be viable there, right?
Right.
That's right. Thank you.
I would have to tell you, is one of the things that we're looking at is a nonprofit grocery, because there's already a grocery outlet up the street, and that does a very good business. And we're thinking about doing this as more of a co-op operation, and we'll put the space in for free, and we want it to be community-led, community-based. We would like it to be a plastic-free environment. That's one of the things we're trying to do with the overall project, is to create a way that we can all live a better carbon footprint life. And so we have some ideas. We've toured a couple of these refillables and reusable markets that that are gaining traction. And so we would like to kind of stretch the envelope on what can be the type of grocery that's community focused and is the biggest benefit.
Thank you, Greg. So we are approaching the 7 o'clock mark. I don't see any additional comments or hands raised. So I think with that being said, go
I
ahead.
do have a quick question. Hey, Greg, quickly, on that little sliver of land owned by Martin, is there any chance that that developer can cause any delay to this project, or that's no longer?
No,
okay.
that is no longer the case.
Okay,
We are figuring out how to completely work around him, because we could not come to any reasonable settlement of his issues. It will not delay the project, Nelson.
all right, that's good.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. Lily, do you have any closing words?
Nope, I just want to thank everyone for your time tonight and for your questions. And we'll send an email probably within the week with a link to the presentation as well as the questions that were answered. And there's a number of things for the city to follow up on in terms of next steps for the community space. And we'll be working closely with the project sponsor to outline that and hope to engage the community both in the process as well as the future uses for that site. So
Terrific.
Okay, have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Bye-bye.